Okay, thank you very much, Chris.
Thank you.
Now we'll move to the next speaker. So the next speaker is Dr. Christine Kubiak. Christine is the executive manager of the ECRIN, which stands for European Clinical Research Infrastructures Network, ECRIN, and she's also working for the French NIH, INSERM. And Dr. Christine Kubiak will present, let's say, if the specificities, if any, of clinical trials for nanopharmaceuticals. Christine, the floor is yours.
Thank you very much. And so I will try to answer this simple question, but I'm not sure that we will have a single answer. And first, I would like to say that I'm not regulators. I'm not working in specifically in the field of nanopharmaceuticals, nanomedicines. So I will explain what is in some words what is a European Clinical Research Infrastructure Network. And then we will see what is the regulatory and ethical context for clinical trials of nanopharmaceuticals, what are the challenges, and also what could be the challenges of multinational trials, because it is one of our expertise. So just to explain, ECRIN is a distributed infrastructure for clinical research. So we are dedicated to support mainly academic researchers or academic sponsors, but also small SMEs. And we are based on the connection of national networks, already existing national networks, and we coordinate at the European level the national research capacity. So we take advantage of existing and professional staff that are working at the national level, and we coordinate them, and we make possible the services to multinational to conduct multinational clinical projects. So we have the expertise also to submit clinical trials application to different regulatory bodies in the different countries, and it's why we can answer to the question if there is specificity for nanopharmaceuticals clinical trials. And so first, what is the regulatory context? So you know that the development of product is with the preclinical phase, and we already see the different steps that are needed to reach the proof of concept. We heard also a little bit of the first clinical phase. And the objective is really to reach the marketing authorization approval. And for this, for the nanopharmaceutical, as for any new product, the clinical step is a crucial one. And you have to demonstrate through the clinical trials the efficacy and the safety of the product. The issue with nanopharmaceutical is that you have some additional challenges, and we will see later. And there is a need, as it was already mentioned previously in the different the two presentations. You need to integrate as soon as possible the regulatory constraint, and so it is a constant dialogue with your regulatory authorities. So for the nanoparticles, what are currently the context and the regulatory framework? When you discuss nanopharmaceutical, that can be considered as medicinal product, and then they will follow the clinical trial directive. Currently, this is the directive that is in force. That will be very soon repealed by a new regulation on clinical trials on medicinal product, but still this is the one that is used. A directive is something that needs to be implemented in national law, and this has resulted in at the European level in different in some discrepancy in the national law implementing the directive. the new regulation will be applied as such, with no adaptation in the different countries. So maybe this will harmonize a little bit more the regulatory context. We will see later. But also, this can be directed by the medical device directive, if considered as a medical device. Again, there will be a revision of this directive, but the current one is still applicable. And if there is some, you can also need to apply different other directive in case you have some advanced therapy, medicinal product. In case you are using medicinal product for pediatric use, if it is an orphan medicinal product, and of course if you have specific substances. So this means that the regulatory framework is complex, but so you have this framework. And in most of the European countries, there is no specific requirements of provision in the national regulation for nanopharmaceuticals. So it means that the directive is applied as such, although we can say that there is some specificity inside what is required, and we will see what does it mean. So the first thing is to know in which kind of framework your product will fall, because the mechanism of action is the key mechanism to decide whether a product is regulated by the medicinal product regulation or medical devices. And a lot of the product, and you know much more on this, have a complex mechanism, and it's very difficult to know the boundaries. And so usually there is a lot of discussion and specialized expertise that is needed to evaluate where this product can on which regulation they should fall. And then we are also in an area that is in constantly evolution in terms of knowledge and requirement, and they of course need some specific expertise. And a lot of additional information may be required. So when you submit first a clinical trial application, you have seen that there are a lot of requirements in terms of IMPD and what is required. It will be probably the same for all the topics that are listed here in terms of biodistribution, immunogenicity, toxicity, also the safety issue, and there is also a lack of standards and methods to evaluate the safety in terms of endpoints and also outcome measures during your clinical trials. And so this is all the challenges you may face in the different steps for your clinical trials application and the clinical development of your product. And of course, there is more scrutiny when it is a first in man, but it's not something new for you. And detailed risk analysis needs also to be provided, and probably this will be more detailed in the next presentation. And then you may also face some additional challenges if you perform multinational clinical trials. And I'm not mentioning when you perform international clinical trials using some different world regions. And there is a lot of differences in terms of legislation, with some insufficient harmonization and no risk adaptation. And you will see also a lot of other issues, but the main issue is the differences you may face, and you see that you have seen in the first slide that already there is some difficulties in terms of boundaries, and later on you may face some difficulty because one competent authority may have different opinion from another one. And just for your information, it was a survey we performed in our infrastructure, where we show that you have a lot of differences in terms of requirements for the different type of categories. And if you see that it is more or less harmonized for the medicinal product with the same requirements in the different countries in terms of yes or no what you need, after that in the detail there are some differences, but when you start with the medical device, you see that there is some differences between the different countries, showing that you may have some really early discussion with your competent authorities in order to make your development successful. And just to conclude, the current EU framework is was used to the current development, and not many, but several products are on the markets using this regulatory framework, and a lot of also clinical trials are under development. When you have a look at the clinicaltrial.gov, where all the clinical trials are registered, you see that there is a lot of clinical trials under development. So although this regulatory framework was used, I think that there is still a lot of development, and the regulatory authorities are working together, and they are also providing some support through different groups or initiative that can help the developers. And the first one is the CMP scientific advice, and they provide advice on the specific issues that are not yet covered or not in line with existing guidance. And there is also the Innovative Task Force, which is a multidisciplinary group that includes scientifics and also regulatory legal competence, and that allow an early dialogue with the applicants. And they have some links with the other authorities in the other world regions, and also an SME office at the EMA. So this is the way the regulatory are supporting the development of nanopharmaceuticals. The current framework is so not adapted specifically to nanopharmaceuticals, but the regulators are taking into account the development in order to help the development of those clinical trials in nanopharmaceuticals. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Christine, for your interesting talk. We have time for a couple of questions. Any question dealing with the clinical trials? Yes, Donald, please. You did use the microphone, please.
Yeah. One, I'm involved with ethical issues, and maybe Johan will mention, I don't know, but there is also the nano code for research in nanotechnologies in general. And even though it's not a regulatory requirement, it's certainly advisory. And if you look at the kind of EC sort of directives, whereas all these things, and if you talk about nanotechnologies, somewhere in it you will see reference to the nano code. So it's not a very good code, I must say, but it's also something which is there. And I think as people develop, particularly really innovative nanosystems, some of the things we've been hearing about, maybe some of these will raise particular ethical questions about the nature of some aspects. So it may be something which also people need to take account as well.
Okay, yeah. I didn't mention all the initiatives that exist and all the link to the information you can find on the regulation. But you're right, yeah.
Yes, please.
That's okay. I'll talk loud. Are you seeing a difference between going through the EMA versus going through the individual countries? I saw you have a beautiful graphic up there that shows the disparity between the different countries, different regions. Are you seeing a trend in one direction or the other where things are more successful through the EMA or less successful?
In fact,
Fair question, I know.
no, it's not an easy one. And in fact, when you are dealing with clinical trials, you are dealing with your national competent authorities. So it is the way you need to go. But it doesn't prevent you have a discussion with EMA, because at the end you will ask for a marketing authorization. So you need both. I think that in the new regulation, the discussion will be more. How I can say this in a political good way? There will be more discussion between the national competent authorities. It will be a single application, so there will be more discussion.
Yes. One question for you, the gentleman here, and then yes, please.
Thank you very much. In your personal opinion, what could be the role of funding agencies like European Commission in the next step towards clinical trials on nanopharmaceuticals? I mean, for instance, in Horizon 2020.
Yeah. It's a very good question, because now the European Commission is funding clinical trials. It was not the case in the previous framework, but now in the end of the 7th framework program and Horizon 2020, there is funding of clinical trials, and so I think that there is a need to how can I say this, to lobby. To have this taken into account at the level of the European Commission, and I think that this kind of forum and also the different platforms that are involved can play a very high role in having this on the different calls.
We are working on it. So yes, one last question, gentleman in the back.
It's very interesting, madam. In your group, in your committee, are all European nations member of your represented in your work in Brussels? And number two, is industry also represented into the working groups? And number three, is there a link with the United States, China and Japan into this field about the guidelines? And then last one, is there a kind of a book, guidelines, who may become recently available on the work what you have been doing during the last years?
Okay, so for our group, so meaning ECRIN, support to clinical research, we are European. We have no involvement of industry, but we have industry in our advisory boards. And regarding the regulators and the discussion at the level of the regulation, there are some guidance that are provided on the EMA's website and also on the website of all the organizations that are involved in nano development. If I have correctly understood your request.
So Eastern Europe is also represented in your groups?
Yes, we start to have some representative. So we have countries in the east part, not yet Russia, for example, but we start to develop with eastern countries. Yes.
And with the United States and China,
And
Japan,
so yes,
is there a link?
yeah, we have some contact with the United States, with Australia. We have contact also with Japan, and not yet with China.
Okay, thank you.
Okay.